Welcome to the Board Game Academic Podcast, where we explore the crossroads of scholarship, play, and practice. I'm your host, Christopher Carbone, scholar, educator, and of course, lifelong gamer. Each week this semester, we discuss with brilliant minds how analog games inform real-world practices, support meaningful challenge, and help us think critically, whether in the classroom, clinics, communities, or beyond. This week, I'm joined by our keynote speaker, Derek.
Hello, that is me. My name is Derek, and I don't know, is this a video thing or just a
Yeah.
voice thing? It's a video thing? Then yes. Yeah, hopefully everyone can also see my little friend here as well. This is the lovely Nomnivore, who's the real guest for this particular episode. But I will be speaking on behalf of this little mute dinosaur.
He's the brains behind the person, and I appreciate that you brought him here this week because technically he's more of the keynote speaker because he's cute, adorable, and so that's always a big help for the people out there. So, Derek, why don't you tell us a little bit about your academic background, what brought you into tabletop gaming, and then professionally, what do you do in the field?
Yeah, I guess I'll start in the order that you presented that with, and academically. I finished my graduate studies over in Seattle University from a very unique modality of counseling psychology, being the existential phenomenological background, right?
Heard of it.
Which is a massive mouthful, yeah. And I'm certain you probably heard of it, Chris, given that you happen to come from the one sister school. Um, but that particular background there is also paired with a bunch of research that I used to do in personality psychology, social psychology, and neuroscience as well, which kind of gives me, well, I wouldn't in any way say it's exhaustive, but I'd like to think of it as like a well-rounded understanding and grasp of both big and little p psychology and a bunch of the related kind of human sciences. Beyond all that, though, I've stumbled into a awkward little intersection between both like therapeutic work and applied work, but not in the sense that people typically think of when they think of psychology. Like I don't really work, at least not anymore, in an office where you sit on a couch and tell me about kind of your parents. Instead, I work in the realm where these little dinosaurs exist, where I now design a whole series of games that are catered towards helping people not necessarily do therapy. There's a whole subsect of games that are designed for therapy, but these are about creating organic therapeutic moments for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
the organization itself, and give us some, tell us a little bit about the organization, and specifically about your main title releases, and the aspects of that might have some accessibility, inclusion, some different dynamics that you mentioned, some fun gameplay that really engages and welcomes people to the table.
Yeah. So people may have heard of my little company that I started about a decade ago now called
Yeah.
Nomnivore Games.
Hey.
Uh, yeah. And it's a studio that I had been dreaming up since like I don't know my high school days, which just me saying that makes me feel super old now. But um, it's built around the idea that there are a lot of different ways that people can access really meaningful moments, right? Tying it back to kind of that existential psychology. And meaning is a massive driver for general happiness, satisfaction, whatever that might be, life direction, and so forth. So having people be given more opportunities to access that and in equitable, fair way was something that was always an interest to me. Beyond that, I'm also a massive freaking nerd. So when I was basically introduced, way back in my undergrad years, the fact that therapy had effectively every different style, like you can go smash things in a rage room to yelling at the top of a mountain to also sitting in a clinician's office, I thought, why not games, right? Games are a really interesting place where people feel safe to have fun to play, to also build and share these meaningful moments with people both in the game and around the game with the communities that they design. Um, and like there was an inherent power in all that that also really just appealed to me as a massive nerd myself. And I was like, yeah, I've seen the power games have such a huge effect in my life. So this kind of all culminated in me thinking about the fact that like maybe we can do a little bit better rather than just leave everything to just happy accidents, but also not swing so hard to the opposite side where we're only about the like perfect, pristine expert knowledge, because like anyone who's been in the academic or professional world will understand there's no such perfect intentionality too, right? Like the amount of times in a therapy session where I'm just go, well, what I wanted to say to make the client have this massive epiphany didn't actually have any effect, but the random thing I randomly said seemed to change their life. So like, what's that all about, right? But like, basically take that type of wisdom of like knowing that I really don't know all that much, and kind of marrying the two together to create games that are at least a little bit more directionally oriented toward these therapeutic moments. Yeah, and that's kind of where Nomnivore started. But I'm also somebody who firmly believes that everyone, no matter who, deserves fair access to healthcare, including your mental and emotional healthcare. Um, this became a massive challenge, a challenge that no other company would want to undertake with any understanding of the market, because like any game designer will immediately tell you the best way to design a game for nobody is by trying to design it for everybody. You have to know your target audience. But this is like antithetical to the whole principle that I have that everyone should be able to not only like play games but also to have
Mm-hmm.
access to mental health care, right?
Yeah.
So I went on a ridiculous warpath to try and make games as accessible as possible to every single audience. There wasn't any particular one that could be left behind. So over time, our games ended up like this entire suite of games that I design, which yes, I'll get to naming in a moment, ended up becoming rather well known for its accessibility. So Nomnivore Games and like myself now, we're known for working specifically in like neurodivergent accessibility, and also we partner and dabble in a bunch of physical disability accessibility
Mm-hmm.
too. So we play around with things like including Braille in our card games, to having dyslexic friendly fonts, and like even the colors of something like our dinosaur here. These are all carefully selected in a way to have the type of appeal based on research that helps people with like ADHD focus on the content better. But yeah, so that's kind of like what I do. And then if you're trying to look up specific releases that I put out on the TTRPG end, have Emberwind, which is like our top shelf toe to
Mm-hmm.
toe kind of contender to something like D&D. And then on like the kids side of TTRPGs, we are currently in, I guess I'd call it like crowdfunding purgatory, where we have a kids TTRPG called Non-Venture, where you play as baby dinosaurs, where like every neurodivergence is actually a gameplay module, and we turn it into a really fun kind of exercise. That like we're a Canadian company, so we're still really struggling with all of the cross-border stuff with the current tariff situation. But we're actively working on and trying to figure out ways to still deliver on that now overdue project.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the more casual end, we also have a bunch of card games from Snack Attack to Dungeons and Dinos, and also our newly released Get Baked game, where the games that we create, the money doesn't actually just come back to us. We actually donate it out to different charities to make sure that people have access to the care that they need, from like kids in children's hospitals to foster care to even like animal rescues and whatever else.
Yeah. All about cookies, man.
Yeah, right. Um, Beyond all that, like we do dabble in other things too. Like we release kids books that are designed to help with, let's say, autistic kids who like to bang their heads on things, to like dyslexic friendly spelling books and alphabet books, and we also just have like general fun stuff for people who are anywhere on any particular type of neurodivergent spectrum.
Yes. Well, it's wonderful, and it's nice to have games that are inclusive and accessible for a wide range of populations, and obviously populations from terminology from our counseling field, but for people of all types and all backgrounds, and also for people to be able to explore the different experiences through the different game characters that they might be embodying, whether it's in the RPG or with specifically with the dinos. Um, because that's always challenging too, to get a game that really brings people together. Because typically when you play a game, you may not know the people that are playing, you may not know their challenges, you may not know their essential neurospicy abilities. So it's nice to have a publisher, designers, and artists actually take all of that into consideration so that everyone can play those games and not just a few select people.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a noble goal, but also the way that you are painting that, I feel like, is overselling me a little bit here. Because I would say, while it is something that everyone should be striving toward, I don't think anyone can truly, fully, ever completely accomplish. Accessibility is an endless chase, and including one audience may come at the exclusion of somebody else. And it's really about just being open to kind of that dialogue, playing around with all that. Like I can get into an entire debate and discussion, and even a soapbox about how like accessibility in digital video games isn't the same as in physical games, and that in
Yes.
itself presents really unique challenges. But anyway, the idealized statement here that I think is wonderful is, yeah, everyone does deserve access to fun
And I
and being
think,
able to.
yeah,
Oh, say.
and Derek, I do think that it's in the attempt that is inspirational to the gamers who are playing it, to the industry that is striving for it, hopefully, and to the naysayers that say that can't be done, or it shouldn't be done, or you should meet us on our own terms instead of trying to address in even small ways. I mean, even just situations with sight, where we're like colorblind issues and things of that nature. Um, Designers still, there are still some designers and publishers who have not gravitated and moved towards that kind of support, and then there's many others that have done so, and it's appreciative. I think Sagrada just recently came out with a reprint in which the dice and the board are a lot more accessible, and it's just slight differences in color and challenges and things of that nature. But I agree with you, we have a long road to go, but again, we always want to bring as many people to the table. And I found in my experience going to the conventions, you want to see that. You want to see that in a very positive dynamic. You're not, how would you say it, diagnosing, medicalizing, people's diversity. Because again, I think that's another way that publishers have gone in the past, or at least serious games, right, have gone in the past.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I think about it, and I've got quite a few thoughts, is like we're in the business of empowering people, right? Like I don't want anyone to feel like they're being diagnosed and like they're being like placed into the secondary or lesser than category, right? And that's part of kind of my issue with a lot of like contemporary
Yeah.
psychology, even, where it's about, well, what's the diagnosis, how do we then treat it. There's this almost, and I don't mean this in general, because there's a lot of like great therapy work out there and great therapists out there, but like there is an uncomfortable amount of um, kind of like a disrespect of the lived experience that people have, because we're
Hmm.
so used to trying to figure out if people fit a particular diagnosis rather than really respect kind of the individual and who they are in front of us. And games are one of those things where I feel like there's some acknowledgement of this too, where like people go, yeah, if only we did this or if we only did that differently, but like no one thinks about doing so from the get-go. And it's this weird thing where it's almost like if you take the philosophical extreme of this to the game design, what you've basically done is you've designed a game that nobody can play, and then what you're doing is lowering the bar until an adequate amount of people can actually play it. And then like, what about everybody else, right? Um, so like I'm very glad to see, and I had never gotten this to become like a trailblazer in this way, but I'm very glad to see that people are now taking this more seriously and approaching it from a particular way. But like where accessibility matters, but now it's about kind of teaching people that accessibility isn't done from that top-down model where you design
Hmm.
an experience and then create accessibility features. It really needs to be flipped where it's bottom up, where you design something for everybody from the get-go, right? And if people want to hear more about that, you'll be able to catch at least some details regarding that at the keynote
Yes.
during the conference. But um, beyond just that, like if anyone's there and just wants to kind of pick my brain and talk about all this, I'm always happy to dedicate kind of all of my time towards all that too.
Well, Derek, one of the interesting things from these interviews that I've been doing over the last several weeks, and obviously the work that our authors do in the academic journal and the academic essays, is that there's this challenge or this bias that games are for children and only children. And for adults to get involved with tabletop games, it's frivolous, it's childish, it's a waste of time, effort, energy, and an intellect. So I don't know. I would even contend that all designers who attempt to bring games to an adult audience is providing some level of accessibility and engagement that society wide questions at least. I'll be charitable. Sometimes a little bit harsher than that, but
Sure.
um, I mean, and again, the activities and things that we're supposed to be doing as adults is a far cry if you look at society's norms or the traditional roles that you and I are supposed to play. So the idea that we sit down and play a role play game, you know, boggles the mind of a lot of people out there, despite its value in so many different practical applications. Not to mention fun. We, as adults, we can still have fun, Derek. We can have an opening of fun.
Right. I think I'll push back a little bit on you there. That's not to say that I don't basically agree with your conclusions. But the part that I push back on isn't that like we as society resist this. I think it's actually a symptom of the condition that we live in for like the modern world right now. Given everything is like I'll phrase it in at least the respect to like the North American audience, but
Hmm.
like there's a not so like it's rather obvious that there's an eradication of kind of that middle class, right? And as people get pushed further and further toward poverty, things go from thriving to really just about surviving. And as people move towards that, it becomes a lot more difficult to entertain the superfluous, to give a moment for yourself to have fun, because it's hard to think about today or this moment right now when you're so worried about like survival. And this only compounds and makes it worse if you have dependents, right? As the
Yes.
adult, if you have kids, if you've got like a parent who needs you, whatever that is, right? Which is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people after working long hours can't really like summon anything beyond just kind of maybe plopping down and watching whatever's on Netflix.
Of course.
Nowadays, I think they're like this isn't in any way documented. This is just a personal opinion, but I feel like people have this rosy tinted way of looking at nostalgia, look at all the,
Mm.
like the video game remakes and so forth, because it reminds us of not only better time, but it's also a in quotes like guaranteed fun thing that you've had before,
Sure.
rather than experiment with something new. So um, because of all that, it's really hard, I think, for people to have the ability to have fun. In fact, I feel like a lot of people who dismiss games as being like too childish or whatever, lot of the time they're the people who have internalized that belief to the point where like they don't allow themselves that anymore. But play has been a foundation to humanity since forever, and not just for kids. This is something that you can experience across everything, and like
Mhm.
play is in itself, and I think a great way of kind of trends migrating, going beyond that particular limit, is to think of play as something that is meaningful, right? Because why isn't it purposeful if in that game you aren't just let's say promoting your own mental health, but also having a chance to explore different versions of yourself to see what that might be, to deepen your relations with the people you're playing with, to foster new, like all of that, I think is immensely meaningful. But like that's also the humble opinion of one designer.
Well, I mean, and I don't just think that's you, Derek. I mean, obviously, we've talked to a lot of teachers and a lot of counselors specifically, and I know that you both teach and counsel historically. And the feedback that we've gotten in relation to tabletop gaming has generally been that play, fun, provides an opening, it provides a space, provides a dynamic for people to kind of explore, right? Therapeutically, you want people to open a space in which they can understand their world in other contexts and broader, um, feelings and thoughts and identities. And same thing educationally. You want students engaged, and they feel engaged when they are personalized, and it's fun and dynamic, and I'm exploring and sometimes even failing, whether that's therapy or education. Even that's also fun. And a lot of those dynamics you find in play, but institutionally, historically, that's not always been the case, right? What's on the test? I have to get a grade, like I have to be right, those kind of things. So play does so much wonderful hard work, I guess.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I think there's a massive failure in the current education system. Like, it hasn't properly evolved from its roots of preparing you for an industrial revolution based job in a factory. And even if like we are updating, we might now be catching up to the informational age, but we're already in the age of artificial intelligence. Like, we're just the system itself is so behind. The frontline people, the teachers, are the ones left with no resources. There's no support. Like, it's awful. And the one thing that I've learned from gamers is that uh, people aren't necessarily afraid of failure, right? People will get up, try again. It's about feeling like the odds are insurmountable, or that they themselves, their input, their choices don't matter. And having a teacher, having and I don't like this language, but like more tools to help people find those moments is really important, which is why I think at the very least, like, I'm not saying let's throw out traditional models of education or therapy, but like we've seen over time that there are cracks where it doesn't work or doesn't work as well, where something could be better employed for that. And, a therapeutically orientated game or an educationally orientated game might be better. Um, one of the things that I'm quoted for saying a lot is, and this is a bit of a reductive stereotype, but it's helpful to at least understand the thinking here. It puts like a little good cap on what I've been saying, which is like not everyone is going to be great at going to your typical like 50-minute clinician hour, right? And in that particular moment, one of the groups that you can like kind of immediately imagine failing at getting something from like talk therapy like that is like the hegemonic heteronormative male, right? Like, imagine like the tough on the chin kind of baby boomer, right? Like, they're not the type to do a great job traditionally, anyways, talking directly face to face with somebody. But they're also the same type who do very well talking shoulder to shoulder. Maybe, let's say, just standing with somebody at a fishing trip, doing something together, right? And I very much look at games as just another way to get people engaged that has access to a lot of meaning, and is just another kind of environment, a tool, as it were, to help facilitate what is really meaningful and matters, the relation between one and another.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I guess I want to say that I want to say that some of my bias and somehow how we were raised, that it's interesting and weird to find that in a tabletop game. And yet at the same time, we know play precedes culture. So just play in general is such a evolutionary force in developing who we are, both personally, professionally, and culturally, society wise. Uh, and again, there's been a lot of elements that have kind of closed down those opportunities. So it's nice to see that games, tabletop games, commercially available games are kind of reopening those aspects as practitioners are using them in counseling, in education, and to connect with communities that maybe have been, not typically supported, have been repressed, have been underserved, marginalized in a lot of ways. And also just because sometimes it's difficult to connect, and games are a wonderful medium for that.
Yeah. I don't think I could have said that better myself.
Wonderful. Next time I'll be the keynote.
I mean, please, I would love to. In fact, we did a panel once together at PAX.
Yes.
I would love to do something like that again.
Well, Derek, you also, the work that you do, and you're very incredibly humble about all of this, but you also are on numerous different boards for nonprofit organizations out there supporting their work in different communities. Maybe you could talk a little bit about all the different groups and people that you work with in the industry in tabletop gaming, to kind of promote this kind of work.
Oh my gosh.
Too many, see?
That yeah, that list is rather long. Um, and like a large part of that starts from just recognizing that I, as a single person, can not cover literally every bit. Like I am not a specialist, for example, on physical disability. So um, because of that, like we work together, or I should say, I work together with a bunch of different groups,
Hmm.
from educator groups to charity groups to physical disability advocacy and so on and so forth. I don't know if I can list all of them here, but like uh, I can try. Like I don't know if that's super useful or if that's better left for like a description in the footnote for
We'll add
this.
a description, but I think it's important for a lot of people, practitioners out there, to know that there's a lot of groups out there, a lot of nonprofit organizations, and people serving different communities. And I think that's always generally helpful, because a lot of times when people go to a convention or they see tabletop as an industry, they generally think or have a certain image promoted to them. And a lot of times the wonderful groups and the wonderful work that's going on behind the scenes to ensure their inclusion is kind of in the background a little bit. Um,
Sure.
the unsung
Then,
heroes like yourself.
then at the very least, for one humble voice, I'd be happy to sing a couple of those names to
Please.
at least try and shine some lights. Um, so one of the groups that I am closely tied to and has been doing a crazy amount of good work in this particular space is Open the Gates. They are specifically a group um, led by a good friend of mine, Liz, who works in the physical disability space. And it's not about, for example, like creating quiet rooms so much as it is about creating accessible gaming spaces, right? And the fact that they exist and are they have their own like access forward based library that exists at pack shows, I think is a stellar mark forward for kind of progress in this particular space. And they design a lot of free tools to help people kind of like with, let's say, vision impairment to play TTRPGs. And they focus a lot of their kind of design around kind of creating like unique character sheets and like spell cards and all that for D&D. Another one that people will be familiar with, they go to PAX or MagFest, that we work closely with, is Cookie Brigade.
Mhm.
As mentioned before, we strongly support everyone having access to mental health. And a core component of your mental health is having all your basic needs taken care of too. And Cookie Brigade is not just a foundation and a group of people with a literal heart of gold. Um, they're effectively a foundation that takes in donations and then provides it to whichever organizations are in most need. So like they'll frequently sponsor things like Child's Play, which then helps support
Hmm.
children's hospitals and so forth. Um, we work together with like a ton of other charity organizations, but like since we've spoken about the educational space as well, I think one that would make a lot of sense to call it there would be VGC USA as well,
Yeah.
which I will say this till the end of my days, Josh. I think your organization name kind of sucks because while it is Video Game Clubs of America and
Yes.
there are video games involved, there's also a whole suite of tabletop games that they work
Yes.
with. And they are really great specifically for educators because they are based out of Philly and
Hmm.
they take games, both ones that are designed for this type of thing and just popular games that everyone knows, like Uno and whatever else, and they create completely free castle standard guidelines for you to take it into the classroom and
Yes.
effectively gamify lessons that help the kids develop in ways that the education system currently feels very under capable of serving sometimes. So yeah, but yeah, there's a whole massive list. And this is just talking about the U.S. I'm actually Canadian, so there's a whole like list for above the border too.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Well, I think it's important, Derek. I mean, you've done so much great work with so many different organizations, and again, no one person could do all of those things out there. But I think as a community that does care and does support, it's good to know that people will step up, provide some service, and again, not have to do everything, but just do a little something or just letting people know that they're there. I mean, it's just tremendous. And again, a lot of those organizations have been inspired by your work, really proud to have call you a friend as we are as well. And, Nomnivore is doing so much good stuff out there in the tabletop industry because again, a lot of publishers are seeking and wanting to do this work. And it's good to know that they have an example of work that's being done out there that is purposeful, but not directive necessarily because it's focused on fun, focused on inclusion, focused on accessibility, and then let the rest of it kind of play out on its own. So, from counselors to educators to community leaders and group leaders who pick up your games and get a chance to play them out there in the field, whether it's in a professional practice or in a fun practice, we're so grateful for you and your team to bring out that work. And we are so tremendously honored to have you as our keynote speaker for the upcoming Tabletop Scholar Conference. So, if you would love to learn more about Derek, and you absolutely should, his information show notes will be in this video, but you can also go to boardgameacademics.com and you will find a full profile of Derek there and be able to connect to all of his different links, the different organizations he works with, and all the great stuff that's upcoming. So please show up and join us at Tabletop Scholars. Get to hear Derek's keynote presentation and get to sit down and play with games with him if you're lucky, because he's awesome and that's great.
thanks for again overselling me.
I
If I
don't think it's
can,
possible, Derek. I'm going to have to push back on you there. I'm just saying.
all right, heard. If anything, what I'll do then is kind of add my own final note here.
Yes, please go for it.
As Chris has already mentioned, like we both are of the opinion that no one person can do it all. So if you're not interested in coming out to listen to me speak about whatever, there are going to be a
Yes,
ton of other great presenters that'll be able to share
100%.
their thoughts and insights from their professional experience as well. But also, you are more than welcome when you're there to make me sit down and listen to you because I don't know your lived experience. And one of the things that I champion all the time is I tell everybody I have no idea what I'm doing. I am doing my best. I will continue to do my best, but I can't make any sort of ambitious successes if I don't have equally sized failures. And the only way I'm only ever going to do better is by paying attention to specifically what you, the player, you, the person with your lived experience, can tell me. So I don't really think of this as a keynote speaker address, even though Chris is definitely pinning at that, and I will be talking definitely because like you're coming out for something, right?
Yes.
But I think of it more as a as a dialogue where you'll be able to teach me just as much as hopefully I'll be able to teach you. Yep. Yep. We'll never be able to escape that.
Nope, never going to be able to do that. So again, we welcome your lived experience. We welcome your physical presence and your attitude and desire to kind of grow and connect with so many other people out there. So thank you, Derek, for joining us here this week. We look forward to having you at the conference. You can find out, again, more details at boardgameacademics.com. You can register for the conference there, find our journal, find our academic essays, and a lot of great stuff that's upcoming and happening. So until next time, keep rolling and thinking critically. Take care, everyone.